the greatest, and I will live and die by this day, it's the greatest individual Premier League campaign ever last season. But in his final 9 games, he only got 2 goals and 1 assist. So this isn't new form, like poor form that stemmed from nowhere. This is poor form that's a continuation of the remainder of last season, and that's a big concern.
Hello and welcome back to the Counter Sports podcast. I'm your host Darren Timson, and today I'm delighted to say I'm joined once more by Beyond the Cops, Lewis Aspinall. Lewis, busy few days I imagine, but how are you?
Busy few days. Not as busy as like Red Men and all that, but I'm good. It's been I got to the point where I was like, I'm just happy the window's over. To be honest, I'm done with transfers now for a good few months. I've had me fix, I've had me fill, but overall, man, I'm good. How's your morning been?
Yeah, I suppose a bit similar to you actually. I think once the window shut yesterday, and obviously there was some disappointing news from a Liverpool point of view, but I felt the same. Everyone wants these transfers, but it kind of takes the wind out of you a little bit, doesn't it?
Yeah, eventually I'm just like, I want to see the Premier League for the football and for the matches and, just that atmosphere. Transfers are just a fun little bonus, but when it gets to a point, and maybe it's because the point we've not been in for a while, where it's like, we're actually doing a lot of business and we're linked with big targets, like, waiting until they came in, it just felt like it was a bit of a slog towards the end. And we got it done, about 99% of our window, which I know we'll get onto in a bit, but overall, I'm just happy that the main focus now is football. And unlike a lot of people, I actually I'm England supporter, so I'm happy that there's still football for me to watch.
Well, before we get on to anything resembling maybe internationals, we'll obviously have to talk. We can't not talk about the big name that came through Liverpool's doors yesterday in Alexander Isak. It took a long time. I think it was about a month and a half after Liverpool's first bid. But eventually it was done for 125 million. I mean, what do you want to say about that one?
I mean, I can't remember a time in our history, or certainly since I've been watching and going back and doing research and things like that, where I can recall us going out to a rival club, I'll do rival in air quotes, because, yeah, that's the whole thing, and taking their best player and saying, yeah, we'll take him. Like, Van Dijk from Southampton is an example, but it's not a rival club. You've got Mo Salah was never a starter during his time at Chelsea, so does that really count? Any players we tend to buy tend to be from outside leagues, or we promote people, or blah, blah, blah. This is the first time I can recall of in a long time where we've properly gone to a rival team and said, right, we're taking him, thanks, bye. And it's a lot of money. It's British record transfer fee. Everyone knows it's a lot of money. The pressure's on him now to perform, and I made a tongue-in-cheek tweet the other day saying that he needs a Luis Suarez-style season to justify all the hassle and the fee. Probably not going to get that, but I do want to see Isak fit into this team, and that it isn't just someone we've signed for the sake of him being available for a lot of money and just thinking, yeah, this will work, just throw him in. There's got to be a plan in place, and I think he can contribute to this team majorly. He's one of the best ball progressors, one of the most creative strikers in Europe last season, statistically, top 10% for take-ons, touches in the attack and penalty area, progressive passes played. So, yeah, I think there's a place for him, and I'm very, very excited that this has just got done, and hopefully our new number 9 can follow in the footsteps of some of our former great number 9s and get some goals.
You talk about, kind of justifying that fee. Firstly, have you seen his interview? I imagine you have with the club's website. Does that interview give you the confidence that he is here to perform at the highest level possible? He's not just at Liverpool because, Liverpool's a good club and, it's nice for him to be there. Does it seem like he's a player who looks like he wants to win the biggest trophies to you?
Yeah, he's confident in himself, and I think even before then, this whole debacle at Newcastle showed that he's confident in his own abilities and that he thinks if he could come to us, he can make a difference. And I have no doubt he's got the mentality to really, really fit. Slot doesn't strike me as someone who would sign someone with a poor mentality or a poor mindset. He doesn't take fools on a Slot. We've seen that we saw that with Trent, as a prime example. So, yeah, everything that Isak said, maybe not everything he's done, but everything that's led to this moment, you can see he's full of confidence. He exudes it. He did that at Newcastle. He's done it already in his interviews with us. So, no doubt in my mind, he's got the mentality to really make an impact at this club alongside those around him, like Salah and Gakpo, share the same sort of mentality.
Yeah. How do you think the fit's gonna be now? Obviously, because Liverpool signed Ekitike earlier in the window, Wirtz has come in as well. There's Gakpo there. Do you think that they're going to stick to the same formation? Do you think maybe someone will have to go on the left that they don't normally play on? How do you think this fit with Isak is going to work?
Slot has shown that he's a very tactically adaptable manager. I think we saw that last season at City, where we would sit back and defend, and we operated in that kind of style. And then we played Tottenham, and it was just gung-ho attack, go for it. I think he's capable of adapting to different situations, and I can see a world where we stick to what we're doing now, and we just rotate Ekitike and Isak, and needs must. I can also see a world where you start Ekitike out on the left, potentially drifting inwards alongside Isak through the middle, and you've got Wirtz who can drift out wide and attack in transitions. I can see a world where maybe Gakpo does drop a little more centrally and Ekitike stays out wide. Like there's a multitude of options, and Slot said that himself. He wants tactical versatility. He wants players who don't just play the one position. He wants the ones who can rotate. That's why he liked Diaz so much at the time. That's why Gakpo was such a big component for him at moments. So I just think it's going to be dependent on who the opponent is, whether Ekitike is through the middle, whether he's out wide, and that's the big one. Is Isak for me is just he feels like he's nailed on as the striker. I can't see a world where he starts getting shifted here, there, and everywhere because he's a striker. He's one of the best in that position in Europe. Ekitike is a bit more flexible. He likes to drift out wide. Sometimes he'll start out there and drift inwards. So it really does just depend, I think, on who we're playing on the day for that regard.
Yeah, it's quite funny, isn't it? Because in normal circumstances, you'd probably say, oh, you wouldn't shift a £70 million forward out wide. But Liverpool have signed a £125 million striker, so it would make sense to start him in his probably best position, wouldn't it? Do you think, obviously we'll get onto a few other bits as well, but do you think Isak is the game changer for Liverpool? You've had a few people look at Arsenal's window and say, oh, Eze is the guy to make Arsenal win the Premier League, but how do you look at the signing from a Liverpool perspective with Isak?
I think for that fee, it's got to be a game changer. I think if it's not, then there's a big sense of disappointment. And every transfer window, everyone tries to pinpoint who it is, who's been the best sign, and who's the sign who's going to make the most impact. We've done it in previous windows ourselves. 2014, we signed Balotelli, and some people thought, yeah, this is the man who's going to change the attack for us now that Suarez is gone. Like, there's so many examples of us pinpointing one person. And I think Isak is a difference maker, but he's only going to be the difference maker as long as those around him provide. And we've seen in this first few matches, we scored 4 against Bournemouth, we scored 3 against Newcastle, but we struggled creatively for large portions of those games and relied on individual quality to get the goals. So we need Wirtz firing on all cylinders. We're going to need Salah back to his best. We need those around him to contribute to his goal scoring ability, or he's not going to be a game changer. Like we see United now, and it's a very different comparison, but just stick with me. United have this issue of creativity, but they think if they just stick a striker up top, the goals will fly in left, right, and centre. It doesn't work unless those around him are actually putting the ball on a plate for him or creating chances for him. So it's all well and good sticking Isak in the top, but until the likes of Salah, Gakpo, Wirtz, McAllister all step up to the level that maybe we saw last season, that's when we'll really see the best of Alexander Isak, and he could potentially become a game changer at that point.
You mentioned there that some players not really performing at the minute to the level we're capable of. Maybe the team isn't performing yet to what we've seen last year under Slot. Do you think that's down to a number of players getting used to each other, Wirtz learning his position in the team and in the league, and other players getting used to him as well? Salah as well, he's not really been firing on all cylinders yet either. What do you think the reason for that so far has been?
I think there's a multitude of things. It could be, like you said perfectly, like it's a lot of people trying to gel together for the first time. Kirkes against Arsenal looked like he was starting to fit that mould, like he's starting to fit in. But you've got Wirtz, who's been a big part of the midfield in the first 3 matches, still adapting to the speed of the league. He went off with cramp against Arsenal. You've got Ekitike, who's doing the exact same thing. I just think it's a lot of spinning plates at the minute, a lot of rotation, a lot of work needed behind the scenes in terms of how the team connects together and works well together. But eventually it will click. But the Salah one is one that's of real concern to me because he had the greatest, and I will live and die by this, that it is the greatest individual Premier League campaign ever last season. But in his final 9 games, he only got 2 goals and 1 assist. So this isn't poor form that's stemmed from nowhere. This is poor form that's a continuation of the remainder of last season, and that's a big concern for me. I know we'd won the league. I know we took our foot off the gas. But Salah doesn't strike me as that type of player who's going to go, yeah, we've already won, so let's just dip it. He really doesn't. He wanted individual accolades. He wanted to break all sorts of records last season. And this campaign is just a continuation of that. And my worry is that going to be something that we can improve on? Or have teams just purely figured out how to cancel Salah out of matches? Is it stick 2 men on him and just don't let him any time on the ball? Is it just keep him out wide, like as close to the byline as you can so that he can't work inwards? Like, that one is a major worry for me. But the rest of it, I feel like, is just a case of wait and it will all gel eventually.
Yeah, the Salah one is interesting. You mentioned there the 2-man defence that he normally gets put with. That's something that we've been seeing since his first season, actually, isn't it? After that unbelievable season. Do you think the signing of Isak will maybe help with that? Because maybe with Ekitike, maybe the defences haven't really been that bothered by him, if I can say that, with having Salah, but knowing that Isak is going to be leading the line whenever he starts playing for Liverpool as a starter. Do you think that will then maybe be able to free up the legs of Salah, because defences know they can't just put 2 men on him because there's a world-class striker 2 meters away from him?
Yeah, 100%. And Salah last season got the numbers he did in spite of having Darwin Núñez through the middle. It wasn't because of him. So now that you've got someone else there who can sort of contribute to not only the goal scoring aspect of Liverpool, but the creative aspect of Salah, like allowing him space to run into. So like in the league last season, Isak was in the top 19% for progressive passes, top 28 for progressive carries, touches in the penalty area, top 12, progressive passes received, top 17. So he's someone who's able to play the ball off to others, but he's also great at receiving it. And that's going to benefit Salah massively, because last campaign, majority of the season, it was Núñez through the middle. You had Diaz drifting in wide. Jota, God rest his soul, like he was injured a lot of the season. There was no stable sort of attacker for him to latch onto. This season now, you've got 2 top quality strikers. One is like being described as world class. One is world class in the making. There's beneficiaries now for each other. They can complement each other's style of play, as opposed to Salah having to drag this team through the mud because you've got Darwin Núñez, who, he couldn't kick a football to save his life at points. Jota was injured a lot. Diaz wasn't a natural number 9 and dipped massively at points. So yeah, I think having Isak here, as well as Ekitike, as well as Gakpo, will allow Salah a bit more space. It is just a case of how he utilises it, because against Arsenal, he was finding space. It was just his first touch was letting him down. It was just his overall talent on the ball was missing that day. So as long as he's able to get a grip of that, I think adding Isak will definitely allow him time and space to work with, like we saw last season.
Just has to move on from the attack a little bit, but not entirely, because I think a bit that surprised me about our attack is the way we've used Kerkez, which is funny because obviously he's a left back. But have you been surprised by how he's been used so far this season? He's looked a little bit more reserved than I think we're used to seeing Kerkez, especially after last season. He's kind of billed as like a young Robbo in a way by some people, the fact that he can just get up the pitch. But we're using him Slot's using him a little bit more like a third centre-back at times. How do you see that one? Is that something maybe because maybe they don't have the player in midfield they potentially would want, or they're trying to give Wirtz more space? Why do you think that Kerkez isn't playing as attacking as I think expected to see him?
I think it's just that. I think it's just we haven't had our stable midfield in the first few matches. Against Bournemouth, we were missing Gravenberch, and we had Szoboszlai and McAllister there. Then against Newcastle, it was Jones and Gravenberch, and McAllister wasn't fit. this match against Arsenal was the first time where it was Gravenberch and McAllister, and unsurprisingly, that was Kirkes' best game.
Yeah.
So I think it is just a case of he's had to invert. That's not a position he's suited to. And then when teams were attacking us on transitions, who Bournemouth and Newcastle are two of the best transitioning teams in the Premier League for attacks, he's then had to try and get him back into position. He's had to rashly jump in, like we saw against Semenyo, against Bournemouth, or Tavernier even. And it paints him in a negative light. I don't think he's been awful in those first two games. It's just he's been forced to play in a position that he's not comfortable with. Against Arsenal, he's best, and he showed it when he's one-on-one with the defender, challenging them, getting stuck in, and then he's got space to run into. He's not someone who can pick up the ball and intricately play it through the middle of the pitch. He's not someone who likes to go inverted. He's someone who likes to be stuck on the wing, battling whoever it is going against him. And he struggled against Guimaraes because he's a physical monster. He struggled against Bournemouth first match, jitters maybe. But against Madueke, I thought he was top class, and that was an amazing performance for him. So now that Gravenberch and McAllister are integrating their way back in, now there seems to be a bit of stability in that back line, we're probably going to see more of the best of him as opposed to that first two, maybe three matches if you count the Community Shield, where there was a lot of rotation, a lot of trial and error in the middle of the pitch, and he was forced to play in a position he wasn't comfortable with.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I also kind of want to get what your take on this as well with Kirkes, and you mentioned Salah as well being stuck in the touchline. Sorry, two defenders kind of ganging up on him, because I think with Isak coming in as well, like I said, there's the potential that defenders will have to defend him as well. But with Kirkes, I feel like if he was to bomb forward as well. Obviously, this is Slot's tactics, so we're going to see how he adapts to the team, how we go forward. But with Kirkes on the left-hand side bombing up and down, defenders will have to defend that as well, because I think with defenders, they know what they're going to get with Gakpo, don't they? He's not one that's going to take a defender down the line, so they're able to, I suppose, just stand him up, and they know he'll come inside, which probably then moves a lot of defenders over. Do you think if Kirkes was able to have that attacking freedom, then that would also free up the likes of Salah and maybe Wirtz as well? Maybe Isak in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I do. And I think against Arsenal, that was a liberty that Kirkes wasn't allowed to take.
Yeah.
I looked at his heat map for something yesterday, and he didn't go into the final third. I think he went in the final third twice throughout the whole match. So he was very much told, stay back, just defend. I want you to be in that back line, solid, blah, blah, blah. Probably because Madueke is the player he's against. But I agree. I think when he finds that attacking impetus, when he's able to work with space in front of him, that's going to give different avenues for Gakpo to move into. Because I think Gakpo is very guilty of being a very one-dimensional player in the sense of he's very, very rarely going to go on the outside of you and try and take you on. It always feels like he's going to cut inside, find a pass, or go into the box. And players can cope with that. This isn't like Iron Robin, where you knew what he was going to do, but because his left foot was so wicked, you were never going to stop it. Cody Gakpo can be nullified in a match, and having Kirkes overlapping him, giving him that extra option would be massively beneficial. It does depend who we play against. Like, I think if we tried that against Arsenal, it wouldn't have went too well. Madueke would have had all the space in the world to work with, and against the lower down teams, so to speak, maybe we'll see more of that attacking side of him, and that's where we'll see the best of Gakpo, hopefully. But I agree. I think when he does find that spark, it's only going to be a beneficiary for the rest of the team going forward.
Yeah, it is just interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of people have been quite critical and, analysing Kirkes' performance. But then I think you kind of mentioned it there. You've got Madueke again, for Arsenal. You've got Alanga in the Newcastle game, and then Semenyo as well as a player that will drift across the line as well. So it's three very fast players he's come up against in his first three games, and you can probably see why they've gone for that defensive mindset a little bit. The last time we spoke, I don't think Leone had signed. I think he was someone that Liverpool were rumoured to be interested in. And I asked you what Liverpool were going to do, and I think you said Isak and Guehi. I think you said or Isak and two defenders. It was Isak and one defender, not Guehi, obviously. What do you make of the Guehi saga as well? I suppose it is a little bit of a saga, the way the final day panned out. Do you think Liverpool miss not having him in the team? Obviously missing a player he didn't have it to begin with. But do you think he's someone that they can maybe hold out to until January or maybe the next summer. What's your feelings on the Gueye situation?
I'm still convinced that Palace don't want to lose him for free. I know Glasner said he wants him to stay, even if he's, even if he goes on a free, he's important to the team, and I get that. I do think they'll sell in January. I can't see a world where they lose him for absolutely nothing, and I do think we will be there or thereabouts. We've laid the groundwork with him. We saw it with Van Dijk. We may see a similar thing here. The concerning thing for me is I think we're very weak in terms of our numbers at centre back at the moment. We've got 4 out and out defenders in Van Dijk, Canate, Leone, and Gomez. Endo is makeshift, what have you, and Robbo can play there at a push. But if the reports are to be believed that if we got Gay, he would have sold Gomez, that to me doesn't say that the plan is to stockpile. It's we didn't view Joe Gomez as a suitable option, whereas Gahey is. And I feel like if that was the case, we should have moved for Mark Gahey much earlier than we did. This shouldn't have been left until the night of deadline day, like the day before, after they beat Villa. This should have been something we'd worked on a long time ago and got done. And I understand that Palace had European qualification. I understand they didn't bring in a defender. But it feels to me like they dragged their feet as well, because this wasn't Alexander Isak kicking up a fuss. This wasn't someone trying to force a move out like Johan Visa at Brentford. Excuse me. This is someone who was happy to stay, was happy to go. Either way, he wasn't going to kick up a fuss. And I think Palace knew that. And I think they've deliberately sort of dragged this out to be like, oh, no, we're going to have to keep Gahey now. Because they know he's not going to kick up a stink about staying. So this whole thing just comes down to time. It took way too long to get to this point. And I think Gahey would be an ideal Canate replacement. He may not be here next summer. I'm convinced he will leave. We're then down to Gomez, Van Dijk, and Leone. So someone has to come in sooner rather than later. And if it's Gahey, brilliant. If it's not, I hope the other person can match that expectation. Because in the first 3 matches of the season, or their first 6 in total, Palace, he's been arguably their best player. He's been incredible. And I'm really disappointed it fell through for that price at the last minute because of daft things. But I'm disappointed. It's going to sound a bit spoiled. I'm a bit disappointed in the club for leaving it as long as they did. Not with the window as a whole, but this was something that we could all see needed doing sooner rather than later, and we left it till later, and ultimately it's cost us.
It's interesting with the Gueye stuff, isn't it? Because, like you say, there's been some reports that Liverpool didn't want to go higher than the 40 million. There's been some reports that Glasner was going to leave if they didn't let Gueye go. So it's all very... I think it's a bit confusing, isn't it, the Gueye situation? Because I am on the same opinion of you, Zah. I think if Liverpool wanted him, they should have went for him earlier. Maybe paid the 40 million that Palace were asking for at the start of the window. Do you think there's a sense that maybe Liverpool weren't overly bothered about bringing him in as a high priority? Is someone that they thought, well, we do have Gomez, we've got Leone, we've got Canate and Van Dijk, so we're fine. Do you think that's a factor that comes into it as well?
Yeah, I do think there was. And Slot said to himself, didn't he? He was like, look, we've got a lot of options at centre-back. We're not too overly concerned. And I do think it was a case of they saw Gahey and thought, this is a player we can get for cheap. He's a leader. He's a captain. But again, you either need him or you don't. And like I said before, I think the notion that we were going to bring in Gahey and sell Gomez shows that the club doesn't think there is a depth crisis at the back. And that's worrying for me because we can all see that. Unless they view Endo as an out-and-out centre-back now, which played against Arsenal midfield, so that can't really be true. I don't know. I agree. I think there was a sense of this doesn't need to be done right now. We can bide our time. But by that point, say... touch wood doesn't happen, but say Van Dijk goes down with an injury, say Canate goes down with an injury, who's already went off with cramp against Arsenal, your season can capitulate, and having a defence that's makeshift means you are not going to win the league. As much as we've brought in Isak and TK and Gap, we've got all these great attacking players, you can't do anything with a defence that's not your stable back line, and losing either of them without having a suitable replacement to come in is a big ask, especially for Leone, who's only made 27 first-team appearances, I think, in his career. Gomez, who's very injury-prone, even though he was brilliant against Arsenal. So it's a gamble, and I'm really, really hoping that it's one that pays off, because this can take our window from one of the greatest ever to a great window, but could have been better, and I don't want it to be viewed that way.
Yeah, it's very reminiscent a little bit, isn't it, of the 2020 summer window after Liverpool won the league, and everyone could see that Liverpool needed a defender, and then they had the multitude of injuries. But do you think, you mentioned Leone there, and obviously none of us want to see an injury crisis, so hopefully that doesn't happen. But do you think there's now opportunities for Leone, who may have, if Guehi came in, may have not really seen the pitch for most of the season? Do you think there's potentially some opportunities for him now up until January?
Yeah, there will be. Leone will get his chance. He's going to get the cup games. We've got Southampton. He'll play in that one, no doubt. He may feature in Champions League matches towards the latter end, providing we get through okay. That could happen. So I do think he'll get his chance. And Gomez, like I said, he was being linked to AC Milan. He was being involved in the Palace deal. Brighton inquired about him, I believe. I think Villa did. He's not going to be around for a long time. I think this will be his last season without a shadow of a doubt. And Leone then is going to have his opportunity to step up. Canate may be leaving. So I do think he'll get his chances this season, but I think it's next season where we'll definitely see him integrated more into the first team, just purely because of player departures and things of that nature.
Yeah, absolutely. The last part of the defence that I want to touch on is one that surprised probably all of us, I suppose. An injury crisis at right back forced Dominic Szoboszlai to fill in for the past 2 games. What have you made of that? Because he's probably been the best right back in the league so far this season.
Mate, what a wallet. He and I made this comparison the other day, and someone said it was right, and then someone said I was an idiot. But I think he's becoming our new James Milner in the sense of, if you need someone who can play right back, he can play right back. If you need him to be defensive midfield, he'll do it. If you need him attacking, he'll do it. That right back performance against Newcastle was one thing against 10 men. Isak, Joelinton went off injured, Gordon was off the pitch. But against Arsenal, that shows you've got true quality, and he's great because he's so calm with the ball. He'll pick it up, and he likes to go inverted because naturally he's a midfielder, so he slows play down there, he creates for others. But defensively, he just looks so astute, and I don't know where this has come from, because I've not seen any signs in the past that are making me think that Szoboszlai is a great defensive-minded player. He can tackle, don't get me wrong, he's not awful, but he always struck me as this energetic presser who wants to get forward, try and score goals, and recently he's just shown so much maturity, and I'm happy for him, because a lot of the narrative going into this season was, is he going to be Wirtz's rotation? Is he going to get sold? Where's he going to play? How's he going to get in the team? He's just laid a marker down for himself to be involved in this team, and I don't think he gets enough credit for that. He could have easily rolled over and said, right, okay, I've lost my spot to Wirtz, I'm just going to have to wait. But he's took his chance at right back, scored one of the best free kicks I can recall seeing, and put in a man of the match performance against a title rival in a position that's not even suited to him. So he's been ridiculous, man, and I'm happy for him to get those type of level performances.
Yeah, I think coming into the season, the talk about transfers and the summer window Liverpool having was just crazy, and it seemed like everyone was such on a positive mood. But then there was always that little faction, I think, that were against Dominic Szoboszlai, and we're like, oh, thank God he's out the team. And that always really angers me, because I think, of course, he's probably not performed to the level that we wanted to see him consistently for the price he came in as well. I think all of us were expecting, seasons of like 20 goals and assists, for example. But at the same time, you can see a player who does actually give his all for the team. You can see that in the last 2 games playing at right back, can't you? And his energy in midfield, I think, at times is so needed, or on the pitch really, because he's more physical. He's probably the most physical midfielder that Liverpool have. And it really annoyed me that people were so easy to just say, oh, get him out the team, because I don't think Wirtz, Alexis and Gravenberch midfield stacks up well against Newcastle and Arsenal, and I think we've seen that proven right in the last 2 weeks. Do you think there's a spot for him somewhere else, back in the midfield, maybe a formation change? Some people have mentioned like a 4-2-2-2, for example, with an Isak, Salah striker and Wirtz and Szoboszlai behind? Or do you think now his future lies at right back?
It's awful because when Bradley and Frimpong are fit, there's no way Szoboszlai gets that spot back, and that's just because we've got two out and out right backs. Who one of them we've signed, excuse me, for big-ish money. It's not big money really in modern day, but we've signed from Bayer Leverkusen. You've got Conor Bradley who's just signed a long-term contract. I think if Szoboszlai, when they come back, I don't expect him to be right back again unless there's injuries. I think he will be pushed back into midfield, and he'll be the rotation option. We've just lost Harvey Elliott, so there's one less player there, one less spot to compete with. And I do think he will be Wirtz's rotation option, so to speak. I think he'll feature more prominently in the cup matches, maybe a bit more in the Champions League. No, even then, like, I don't know. I think this was his opportunity. He's took it, but I think Slot is very sort of regimented in who he wants to play. He doesn't rotate a great deal, so I think he will just end up on the bench. As for formation change, I understand it's been poor start to the season, but I'm of the sort of don't fix what isn't broke kind of thing. Our issues in the squad have been more down to individual errors and poor performances, I'd say, overall, more so than tactics at points. And against Arsenal, we showcased that was us back to our best defensively. There's no point in trying to change what's in front of them just to accommodate Dominic Szoboszlai getting into the team, because as much as he scored that wonderful goal, as much as he was great at right back, is he a better midfielder than McAllister? No. Is he a better midfielder than Gravenberg? Not for the role that he plays. Is he a better midfielder than Wirtz? Possibly on form at the moment, but overall there's more to come from Wirtz. So I don't see a way for him back into the immediate first team in the next few matches, personally.
Yeah, it's something I've just seen branded about by a few people, because obviously with I think Gakpo's performances have left a lot to be desired as well, and I think he's kind of gotten away with that a little bit with his goal, or 2 goals and assist, or 1 goal and 2 assists, whatever it is. And I think with Salah as well being so isolated on the touchline, I think it's just a suggestion of, how can we maybe get Salah closer to positions we want him to be in, and then how can we fit Szoboszlai in the team. So I think it's interesting, and I think we've seen Slot, he has experimented a couple of times, hasn't he? We saw that against Manchester City last season with the 2 10 strikers. So it'll be interesting to see how he does the look to maybe use Dominic Szoboszlai a bit more, because I am of the opinion that he'll be wasted if he's on the bench for the whole season. But how the team works and how it fits will obviously depend on the form and how things go, obviously. Is there anything else you want to touch on Liverpool before moving on?
I've got to say I'm a bit disappointed with the Harvey Elliott deal.
Okay.
I think 35 million quid is far too cheap for someone of that quality, considering it was getting touted around with like 50 million, 60 million not long ago. So I'm not sure what's happened there. I am happy we've put a buyback clause in. Thrilled with that. And I think him going to Villa is that's a perfect move for him. That's a dream move for Harvey Elliott. So, disappointed that he's gone. I loved Harvey Elliott, but I completely get why. I just think we could have got a bit more for him, especially if it's like a loan with an obligation to buy. We're giving them a year free, essentially. So, a bit disappointed with that.
Yeah, I can't lie. I was the same. I thought when I saw the loan with the obligation, I was like, oh, maybe we're asking for like 55 then, and then it was 35. Do you think maybe there's a future softening for deals potentially with a Morgan Rogers in the future at Aston Villa? Do you think that's why they've gone low?
Maybe it's just not to burn bridges, but I for some reason can't see Morgan Rogers coming to us. Gakpo's just signed his long-term deal. They've said they don't want to hamper Ngamoa's development. It'd be next summer when Morgan Rogers would come to us, and by then, a lot can change. You could have a poor season. Ngamoa could have a brilliant campaign and really establish himself as the backup. So I personally can't see it, but I can understand why people may look at it and think this was us trying to keep things sweet until that does happen.
Yeah, I think people just like to be hopeful, don't they? We'll move on to the rivals, because Manchester City haven't started very well, but they've signed a few players, and Arsenal as well have signed quite a lot of players. I think they've taken their total of centre-backs to about the 100 mark, if I'm reading that correctly, with Mosquera and what's his name, Pierre Nketiah coming in as well. What have you made of those two summers for those clubs? Arsenal as well. They're putting out tweets saying about finishing the puzzle essentially, which I just think is very interesting to do. What do you think Arsenal have done enough now? Do you think that they've had a summer window where they can't complain? They can be no excuses for lack of a better word, and they've got to really perform this season.
Arsenal have had like 5 years of transfer windows that make them think it's the last final piece of the puzzle. They're after chips every season. If we get a defender in, it'll strengthen us, we'll win the league. If we get a striker in, it'll strengthen us, it'll win the league. Get a winger, it'll strengthen it. I'm so bored of hearing it from them. And don't get me wrong, I would say up until yesterday, they've probably had the best transfer window. I think in terms of the deals they've done, even bringing in Norgard, I think that's a solid sign and a bit of experience. Madueke is questionable, but given the fact that Saka's already down with an injury, you get it. So Mendy is a great sign, and Gyökeres, not convinced, but he's still a striker. Eze, brilliant. I agree. I think that this is a proper... They've got in all the players they need. They've signed in the positions they needed to strengthen, and that's something that maybe we didn't do as much going into this window, but now we have. So I think they've done enough to really be a viable threat. But again, we've said that now for years and years.
Yeah.
Every season that changes what they need, what the story is, what the excuse is, until they actually back it up. It doesn't mean anything, and as we saw the other day, we're yet to see that happen. So.
On City, they've obviously, like I said, signed a few players. Cherki is now out for 2 months with an injury, which is probably not the best news for them. What have you made of their start to the season as well? And do you think they're looking like a team that can be involved in a potential title race with Arsenal and Liverpool?
I think I've got PTSD from City because for me to write off, I'm like sort of, I don't want to. Do you know what I mean? Like they lose 6 matches in a row, and I'd still say they'll be there or thereabouts. But they just don't look right, and they've had a brilliant window as well. But looking at it though, actually, have they? Because Trafford's not been good at all. 2 mistakes in 2 matches. Aït-Nouri, good player. Reinders had 1 good match. Cherki was awful against Tottenham. So there's something deeper rooted at City, and I think just bringing in players doesn't fix that problem. And there was a good tweet that I saw earlier on by, I think it was Dougie Critchley actually, and he said something like, look at City's Champions League winning team. Only 2 or 3 players of that squad are still there, and it does feel like they've changed too much too soon, not to mention all the sort of Pep's personal stuff, which we're not going to go into, but you've also got the 115 charges, you've got all that issue going on. And I just think City at the moment, no amount of throwing money at the problem is going to immediately fix it. So it's been a decent window by them, but I'm still not convinced that they're going to be there or thereabouts immediately at the top, because they've already lost 2 matches, and you go back a few years, they didn't lose their first match until we played them in January, beat them 4-3. So this isn't the City of then. They've got name value at the moment, but no, I don't think they're going to be right up there.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's confused me most, to be honest, out of any team's transfer window is the fact that City haven't signed a right back, and they're continuing to play Mateus Nunes and players who aren't very good at right back there, which I just find very, very strange, especially from Pep Guardiola as well. On the rest of the league, is there a team who you think's had a underrated transfer window, a poor transfer window? How have you looked at the rest of the league's transfer business?
Well, Sunderland have been very busy, and there's a few good players in there. I think Simon Dinger is a great addition for them from Brighton. They've also signed Enze Lefi, who last season I think he was in the top 6% for every passing metric in the Championship. They've signed Granit Xhaka, who's going to give them a lot of stability. Mukiele's already made an impact this season. So I think Sunderland have had a very good window. Tottenham, it's an interesting one because on one hand, they were in a scramble to sign a defensive player yesterday, but they've also gone out and they've signed Xavi Simons, signed Colin Muani, so they imitate Mohamed Kudus. They've done well. I do think that's a window which you could maybe look at and think, they've not recruited enough at the back. Yes, Kevin Danzo's a decent signing. Yes, Vuskovic, very young, but he could grow into something. But they've signed some solid players. In terms of a window that's been pretty poor, I mean, Wolves is open for debate. I'm just I've got them all in front of me right now because there's a few that I completely forgot I'd even done anything. Fulham have only signed one player.
Yeah.
So they've probably had the worst one. Brentford's window's not been particularly brilliant, but there's a few gems hidden around the teams. There's no bar Fulham. Every team has signed a player that you can look at and go, that makes sense to me. I can get that. I can get behind that one.
You mentioned Sunderland there as well. Just to round off all the promoted sides, how have you found Leeds and Burnley's business as well? Do you think all three sides have shown intent to stay in the division this year? Do you think they've got enough players? What's your overriding feeling on that one as well?
I think Leeds have shown enough, and I do think Leeds will survive. I think Burnley are the only one of the three that I'm dead set will go down. I think Sunderland and Leeds will survive. Anton Stash is a great signing, I think, from Hoffenheim in terms of his passing range, his defensive acumen. I think he's very good. Biol is a good signing, got solid centre-back from Udinese. He looks good. Bringing in Sean Longstaff, while it's nothing incredibly special, it brings you a bit of Premier League experience at least. Burnley, for me, are an interesting one because they've spent an awful lot of money, and some of the names they've brought in are like really good. Jaden Anthony is a really good player from Bournemouth. Ugachukwu, 21 years old, Chelsea. We know him from when they signed him from Villa. They've signed well, and I think Kyle Walker's a decent signing as well. But I just don't think they're prepared for the step up of this league defensively at the moment. I still think that there's a lot of teething issues there. Scott Parker notoriously is not a good level Premier League manager, so I do think they will go down. But they've had a decent window. Broyer's an all right signing. I just think losing James Trafford, I think losing CJ Egan-Riley, who was their best defender last season, it's going to really come back to bite them. And losing Brownhill as well, he was their top goal scorer. It's a lot to replace. Yeah,
absolutely. Final questions, depending on your answer. Your favourite transfer of the summer?
Is this for Liverpool or is this just in general?
Well, in general, but if it's a Liverpool player, then I'll ask you your non-favourite Liverpool one.
Okay, well, I mean, the best signing of the window, if it didn't say Isak, I'd be probably lying. I think I would have said Wirtz, but now that we've got 3 matches of data on him, I'm sort of like, he needs time to work on it. But I think Isak is the biggest name. Like, that's probably the biggest one for us, personally. In terms of the other clubs, oh my God, there's loads. Evan Guasond for Villa could be a really good one. He had 12 goals and 8 assists in Liga, and last season he could be a really, really good signing for them. I think Brighton, replacing Estupiñán, they've signed Maxim de Kruijper, who last season for Club Brugge, he was in the top 8% for attacking metrics and top 12% for the defensive metrics. He could be a good one. Truffert for Bournemouth, that's a good defensive signing. I'm a very I love defenders. I don't know why. It's just something about them sort of draws me to them. There's been a lot of good signings, so it's really, really hard to pick. And I'm always more interested in the hidden gems that teams sign more so than Sesko going to United or Reinders going to City or something like that. I love a hidden gem who comes in and makes an impact. That's why I think forgotten the name completely. Adingra for Sunderland. That's what I'm really looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's been a more active transfer window, I think, this year than it has been for quite a while, and a lot of teams signing a lot of these kind of little gems that we don't really see all the time. But as we're coming up to 11 o'clock now, and I know that you're going to be busy very soon, so I'm going to say thank you for joining me again today, Lewis.
Thank you. And I appreciate always coming on.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll bring you on again soon with, hopefully if plans actually work out next time. But we'll leave that one out there. But yes, that's been the Counter Sport podcast today, and thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And yeah, thank you and goodbye.